Has that ever happened to you?
Has whatever happened to me?
You've been wanting to watch a film for a very long time. Maybe you even tried watching it. Maybe you even did so several times, but you just couldn't get into it. And then, when you finally watched it, you felt so amazed at how relevant it was in that particular moment, how something in the film met something in your life. It's not that if you would have watched this film before, you wouldn't have appreciated it, but it just wasn't the right time. It's that magic of discovering something when you most need it, and thus benefiting fully from that experience's potential. It's in the difference between I wanted to watch this and I needed to see this. Because sometimes what we want and what we need are very different things. It's very easy to understand this idea when you draw a parallel with food. After all, it's all an experience of consuming. So, for example, one day your body feels low on electrolytes and is trying to create an impulse, a craving to satisfy that need. So you feel like you want some chips. You can eat a whole pack, and yet your body will stay low on potassium or magnesium or whatever it is that you actually needed. Going back to that film you have wanted to watch for a while before you actually did, can you remember how did you first learn of its existence? Maybe you saw it advertised somewhere, or it's a film of a director or actor whose work you already like. Maybe it's one of those cult films that people seem to just be born with the knowledge of, or maybe it was simply recommended by someone. I believe there was a whole culture of film recommendations that is now kind of dying down. And to be honest, I never actually liked giving film recommendations. When directly asked, "Oh, you're a film lover, so what should I watch?" the mind just goes blank. It is as if you have never seen a film before in your life. Suddenly you're grasping, trying to remember just anything. And then let's say something comes to mind. Whether you made the safe choice of a bulletproof cultural sensation film, or you went for that hidden gem, which you fear will make you appear either as a misunderstood hipster genius or a total creep, let's say you've recommended something. You genuinely appreciated, maybe even enjoyed, something you found important and worth sharing. Maybe you went the extra mile, considering the person you're recommending to, their character and preferences, and tried choosing something just for them. But in truth, you can never know what would be that perfect match at that perfect moment. I'm not saying it's not worth a guess, just that it is a guess after all. If someone likes, let's say, witches, I would probably talk to them about Anna Biller's The Love Witch, which, by the way, I talk about at length in my last video essay. We screened it once within a cinema club I was part of. And after the event, someone posted something like, "Wow, I cannot believe I didn't know about this film before." They were already into this kind of stuff, yet this particular film eluded them until that moment. So in that sense, I think we succeeded in making an exciting, if not perfect match for that person. The only thing that makes for an even more impactful, or magical, if you will, match is having someone who was not knowledgeable of that, or was curious but didn't have a point of connection. But upon discovering the film, a whole world of curiosity opened up to them. Which is what happened to me when I first discovered this film, and it was actually recommended by a friend. So I see a lot of value in recommending films, even though asking point blank just seems stressful and a little prone to mismatch. My argument is that it is best when these recommendations emerge from lived and shared experience. Imagine asking someone what their favorite dried fruit is, and they say papaya. And then you go through a supermarket, buy some papaya, come home to eat it, and hate it. You can even start questioning the taste of that person, not knowing what the papaya actually tastes like, or means for them. Now imagine a different scenario. You are having a picnic with some friends, somewhere nice, and it's a beautiful day. The sun is shining, there's a river nearby. And your friend hands you some dried papaya they brought for the picnic. They tell you about the first time they tried it and how much they loved it ever since. There could be a lot to the story, so even if you end up disliking the taste of it, you can still appreciate having this particular experience. And it is easier to do so because it is shared. Earlier, I said that this culture of film recommendations might be dying down. This is mostly speculation. There isn't really a way to measure how often people ask for specific film recommendations. But I have noticed this in connection to the rise of streaming platforms and film tracking platforms, specifically for creating or curating watch lists. The paradox is that even though we now have these huge libraries and lists and collections to choose from, it feels harder than ever to choose what to watch these days. Just like the dichotomy of want and need, there is one between choice and discovery. We are seeking to choose what we want, but it's also important sometimes to discover what we need.
When the first filmmakers discovered, they could use the new medium to tell stories.
This is not to dismiss the great effort of cinema lovers in sorting through and crafting these unique lists, which personally I revel in exploring. They offer ways of discovering much more than the films. When going down this rabbit hole, I am often mesmerized by the posters, the directors' biographies, the emotional responses of viewers, and the multitude of cinematic experiments out there. Going on this browsing journey further reinforces the curiosity and inspiration you started with. It has so much more potential than helping you choose one film to watch right now, because it reminds you how much more there is out there for you. So, you're down the rabbit hole, reaching for things to add to your watch list, which is the list of things you want to watch, right? Well, I think it may be a bit more than that. It's social media for intellectuals and some new way of building a persona. Because some films might be on the watch list, not because you truly want to watch them, but because you want to be the kind of person who wants to watch them. They may seem interesting or compelling when you find them, or they may be the must-watch kind, so you add them as an option for the future. Something you might watch when you have some more time. But then when you do have the time, they don't feel either like something you want nor like something you need. In truth, you might feel like this is not something you will ever dedicate the time to, and yet you leave them on the watch list. It feels like something worth knowing about, or worth remembering it exists, or maybe worth signaling that you are the kind of person that is interested in this. You could be doing this for your own sake, or for the sake of others, that is, the other users and your own followers. Which brings me to the next phenomenon these tracking platforms generate. Let's call it competitive watching. It's one thing to have this potential of discovery of all the things you would want to watch, and another to have a need to keep up with other users. Beyond the potential of, wow, there is so much out there, there is the potential of discovery through other people's engagement, the likes and the hearts and the stars alongside the reviews and watch lists. From how could you give that film just 2 stars to discovering what your friends watched and even what they thought of it without having to see and ask them. And at the same time, this enables you to see their engagement with cinema in numbers, exactly how many films they watched or liked or noticed, which then can generate a desire to watch at least as much or even more. It could even create a feeling of shame or embarrassment over not having watched enough. For a while, I felt this way too, until I realized I am missing on the potential of discovery, and that there is no pride or gained value in switching from quality to quantity of processing. As I said, it is all about consuming, be it food or art, and there is nothing wrong in consuming. We need it as sustenance for body and soul. But when your body feels satiated after a meal, there's really no point in gobbling up another 3 portions. You'll get no nutrients out of it, and you might even feel sick. The same goes for consuming art. Doing so mindlessly entirely ignores the need for films to be processed, digested really. Whenever a film met me at the absolute right time, when it was a very meaningful watch, I lived with it for days. I couldn't, or rather didn't want to, watch anything else for a while. I wanted to hang on to the aftertaste, feel it and live it. As of recently, there is a new way of getting recommendations, which is through AI. While browsing lists maintain some sort of discovery journey, AI rids you of the discovery process entirely. You can just go to any LLM and type in or even dictate exactly what you're in the mood for, or you can just ask for blind recommendations. The direct question, which usually makes people's mind go blank for a while, has AI generating a list full with synopsis and reasoning in seconds. Hell, it can even hallucinate some movies that never existed. And it is entirely different from the kind of film recommendations I talked about in the beginning. AI's recommendations are biased and indifferent. And yes, a person's recommendations are biased as well, but rooted in their opinions, taste, and most importantly, lived experience. AI's bias is somewhat a mystery, could be algorithm or the amount of specific available information or whatever it sort of randomly reaches for. Moreover, a person simply cannot be completely indifferent to what they recommend, because there has to be some emotional involvement with the film to even remember it, and then some motivation behind sharing it. Contrary to that, AI is not capable of remembering or caring about the films or the experience of watching or sharing them. Nevertheless, it's entirely possible to get an adequate list of choices through AI. You can definitely find and enjoy your next watch, but it's a bit like eating processed foods, like one of those 2-portion lasagnas in a plastic container from the frozen food section. On a day when you are too tired to cook yourself, you just remove the plastic film, microwave it per instructions, and voila, a full meal that might even be surprisingly good. It's tasty and filling, and most importantly, it fulfills the need somewhat effortlessly. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but wouldn't you agree that it's just a totally different experience and maybe even taste from cooking the lasagna from scratch? Another thing I want to discuss in relation to this split of choice versus discovery is the split between the individual and the community. Within the rise of individualistic culture, we have this idea of life as a personal journey of self-discovery. But as Lev Vygotsky put it, through others we know ourselves. So to think of discovery as an individual process, especially in relation to such a collaborative media as cinema, is just a little silly. Which finally brings us to the main thesis, that the process of discovery is to be treasured and considered an integral part of experiencing cinema. Therefore, we have a need for spaces, both physical and metaphysical, that protect and nurture the process of discovery. And these spaces ought to be a collective effort, because honestly, what is the individual supposed to do when even their own personal journey requires navigating the collective. Cinemas, the OG irreplaceable structures, the meccas of cinema, where films come and live and are experienced as intended, cinemas offer the essential, curated, collective, and intentional way of experiencing film. And I believe we need more cinemas. I will probably believe we need more cinemas, no matter how many more cinemas we get. Simply because I do not see the end of opportunity when it comes to experimenting with screenings. I love the idea of thematic, playful, even naughty cinemas. Cinemas with beds, cinemas that serve dinner, cinemas that only screen erotic films or action movies. Cinemas that only screen the same film every day. Cinemas on the beach and the mountains or the woods. Some of this actually already exist and some might never come to life. But in truth, cinemas are a very commercial structure. And yes, films cost a lot of money to produce, and yes, we live in a capitalist society, and there is a structured logic behind cinema tickets. And most importantly, could be to support the effort of both creators and curators, which is a rather limited term, but here refers to all those who keep the cinema structures alive. But what is one to do when they can only afford a ticket to the cinema once in a few months or even a year? How do we, as a society, create the spaces to keep the discovery and the intentional experience of cinema accessible without disrespecting the process of creation? The question is mostly rhetorical, as the potential for creating those spaces is hopefully just as broad as the potential of all kinds of cinemas. But I will, however, talk of one way which was most explored by me: film screening initiatives. As I said, I was previously co-founder and organizing member of a film club like this that set out to do weekly public screenings called Bioskop. These days, I also sometimes take part in a similar initiative, but this time as a member of the audience. Such initiatives often fall into a gray area, an area of illegality even. Although in my experience, the organizers are usually very mindful of what it means to produce and screen films. Moreover, the films screened are often classics or films which are old enough to be off the festival or cinema circuit. Now, mind you, neither of the two mentioned initiatives charge the audience. The screenings are a voluntary effort to maintain accessibility to the curated, collective, and intentional experience. So in that sense, I think they truly fulfill a larger mission of maintaining a space of discovery, of love and passion for cinema, which ultimately brings more value both to any screened film and to the world of film in general than selling a few tickets ever could. But this only holds up for truly non-commercial endeavors. If you financially profit from a screening while disregarding commercial rights, then yeah, I think you are in the wrong. You are then mimicking the cinema as a structure, but disrespect the integrity and entirety of this structure. Yes, you might replicate the experience of a collective intentional screening, you might even make a real contribution in doing so, but the experience of sharing cinema is then tainted, dishonest, and disrespectful. The beauty, as I discovered it, was in being so passionate, so eager to share, that you are willing to give much more than you take in order to create and nurture the space for discovery and shared experience. You'd rather take a loss of resources than risk making it inaccessible for anyone. But beyond the physical space, the rooms and the screens and the seats, there's always potential for creating metaphysical spaces that support this process of discovery. I think it starts with being connected and honest with yourself in discerning between what you feel like you want or need to watch, in what you're consciously choosing and what you're accidentally discovering, and then sharing it and being honest and generous about it. There's a certain vulnerability in sharing your honest thoughts and experiences of a watch, but it is insanely valuable as it contributes to the collective experience of processing both cinema and life. And this is exactly what I'm trying to create here, a new kind of space for discovering and sharing as a community. So, in subscribing and engaging, you really help me in this mission, and hopefully you also feel part of something. The word marginalia signifies notes left on the margins of book pages. There's a certain magic in books with marginalia. Whether you knew the person they belonged to or not, it's a discovery so intimate, one of an ongoing processing and understanding, and simultaneously the act of sharing this understanding. It is what I set out for this channel to be. A space where discovery emerges and becomes, once again, a collective and intentional experience. Thank you for watching.